So, today we're going to dive into one of history's most dramatic and honestly enigmatic prophecies, the epic tale of Gog. It's this incredible story of ambition, power, and a hidden purpose, and we're going to break it down like a grand five-act play. Now, to really get a handle on this ancient story, let's start with a little parable. Just picture a wise gardener and his most cherished plot of land. This simple story is going to be our guide through the prophecy's pretty complex landscape, with the gardener representing the divine, and the garden, well, that's the people who find themselves in the crosshairs. All right, so Act 1 kicks off with a storm gathering on the horizon, and this is where the prophecy introduces us to a mysterious and incredibly powerful antagonist, a figure who's about to set the stage for a conflict of absolutely epic proportions. And right at the heart of this storm is a figure named Gog. He's described as a sovereign prince, which tells us he's a leader with immense influence. In our parable, he's that robust, ambitious weed, the one growing just outside the garden, totally determined to spread his roots and take over. What's wild is that the conflict is set up immediately, and with such striking directness. This isn't some subtle geopolitical chess match. It is a personal declaration, a direct challenge laid down from the very first scene. And Gog, well, he is not acting alone. No way. As you can see here, he gathers this massive international coalition, a truly formidable army pulled from all across the known world. He's just like that ambitious weed from our parable, gathering all the smaller, thirsty weeds around him with the promise of a big prize. Okay, moving into Act 2, the invasion is right around the corner. But as Gog's forces get ready to strike, we find out that there are actually two very different plans, with two very different motives unfolding at the exact same time. So you'd think this colossal army would be targeting some rival superpower, right? Nope. Their target is actually surprising. Their sights are set on a peaceful, trusting people living in an undefended land. This is the gardener's cherished plot from our story, looking all soft and unsuspecting. And this is where things get really fascinating. It perfectly illustrates the core tension of the whole story. See, Gog thinks he's the one in charge, driven by a simple plan of greed and plunder. But what he doesn't know is that he's a pawn in a much larger game. His ambition is being used for the gardener's purpose, a divine plan that he can't even begin to imagine. You have to picture the sheer scale of this invading force. It's described as being so overwhelming, it's like a massive cloud rolling in, covering the entire land and literally darkening the sky. It's that vast shadow cast by the weeds in our parable, designed to feel like this unstoppable force of nature. And just as that unstoppable force is about to succeed, right when it looks like it's all over, bam, we hit Act 3, the climax. At the very last moment, a sudden, supernatural intervention, the gardener's quiet fury, completely flips the script. The divine response is immediate, and it is catastrophic. It doesn't even start with a counterattack. It starts with nature itself turning against the invaders, as the very ground begins to shake violently right under their feet. The destruction just ramps up from there. The landscape itself is torn apart as ancient mountains, symbols of permanence, they just crumble and fall. This becomes a total full-scale cataclysm. Chaos erupts within Gog's own ranks, turning soldier against soldier. Sickness spreads through their camp. And all the while, this terrifying storm of hail, fire, and brimstone just rains down from the sky. The entire invasion collapses from the inside out. Okay, the storm has passed. Now we move to Act 4, where the story shifts to the aftermath. And it's here that the sheer, staggering scale of the defeat becomes crystal clear through the great cleanup that has to happen. So the first piece of hard evidence we get is the just mind-boggling volume of weapons left behind. The prophecy says it will take 7 years just to burn them all for fuel. Can you imagine an army so huge that its leftover weapons could heat an entire nation for almost a decade? That's the kind of scale we're talking about here. And the human cost is just as immense. It's going to take a full 7 months of nonstop work just for the first phase of the mass burial. This detail isn't just about the number of dead, it's about the overwhelming task of simply restoring the land. What's really interesting is that this cleanup isn't chaotic at all. It's described as a highly organized two-step process. First, a mass burial in one specific designated valley. Then, a nationwide search by professionals to find every last trace, making sure the land is completely, totally cleansed. Which brings us to our final act. After the battle, the destruction, and the cleanup, the story finally reveals its ultimate purpose. Why? Why did any of this have to happen? The answer, believe it or not, is incredibly simple, but so profound. The entire saga, from that first gathering storm to the final cleanup, was orchestrated for one single reason: so that God's power and identity would be known. And this big reveal isn't just for one audience. It has a dual objective. It's for the nations of the world, the outsiders, so they can finally understand who is truly in control. And it's also for the people of Israel, the insiders, so that they too will fully know him. And that's really the key takeaway here. Every single piece of this prophecy, Gog's ambition, that massive army, the impossible victory, the staggering cleanup, it's all perfectly orchestrated. It all builds towards this one final, worldwide moment of recognition. And so the prophecy leaves us with this huge, powerful question. Just like that ambitious weed in our parable, whose great thirst was ultimately used by the gardener to reveal his power, we're left to wonder about the complex dance between our own ambitions and a higher design. How can our own plans, our own desires, unknowingly end up serving a purpose far greater than we could ever imagine?